All right, good to see you all. My name is Richard. We're going to be spending some fun time today talking about what's new with Google Cloud and Workspace. And I don't know what that voice of God was saying. We are going to take live questions, so it was a liar. We're really going to do it at the end. Yeah, why not? Save up those tough questions to stump Aja, not me. Don't ask me the hard ones. But we're going to have some fun today, talking about a lot of different things. You know, honestly, if we go back to what you all hopefully deserve, I will even not even say AI, because AI is a means to an end. You've heard a lot about AI. But what hopefully you deserve is great things that help you use awesome tech, simpler things, things have gotten a little too complicated, good integrations, let's connect the dots a little bit, openness, you can plug and play, and then a great community, right? That's what we're really after. Things like AI and even certain dev tools are just a means to an end. So I'm going to try to connect to these things as we talk about this whole set of different, interesting, wild things that we've recently announced. So let's have some fun. So what is Google Cloud? Hey, maybe you don't know. That's okay. If you don't know, it's a set of infrastructure and services people use to build awesome software. So starts with some amazing global infrastructure that also powers Google itself. Things like our storage system, our network system. These are the things powering YouTube. These are the things powering maps and ads and search. You get to use it too. So as you get to use this great infrastructure, we've also built a handful of services for security and data and app dev that you get to tap into and make it easier to build and run great software. All right, so I think I'm fired if I don't start with what's new with AI, and I do like my job, so we're going to start with that, which is okay. And let's talk about that. When we think about the AI set of services and systems, where does this go? Infrastructure is awesome, right? You heard about TPUs and GPUs and things like that. That's amazing. That model garden is a very underrated part of the platform. This is where you can discover all sorts of Google first-party models, amazing third-party models, 130 plus things in there. This is a great way to discover which one you want to use. But then it starts getting a little more fun for app builders, right? How do I build models, train them, tune them, host them? And then if you say, I don't care about any of that, I just want to build cool stuff, agent builder, SDKs, those front-end things at the top, the key is that we've built a really interesting vertically integrated stack, but you can go wherever you want. So if we start at that first one, let's talk about our first-party model story and what you might want to do with that as a dev. What's interesting and exciting here? Anyone heard of Gemini? That feels like a new word. No, it doesn't. We've all been hearing about Gemini, but it's awesome. And 1.0 Pro is here. It's generally available. Gives you some amazing ability to do this multimodal thing, which for a lot of us lets us build some pretty cool apps. Now, today you've heard about Flash, which is pretty wild. If I really care about lower latency, but I still want that million token context window, I still want that really great performance, you can use this today. Both of these models, jump into Google AI Studio, start using them, experiment with them, try them. You don't have to pay anything. And then you can also use these in Vertex as you do more and more with cloud. Of course, Gemini 1.5 Pro, we talked about this. We've actually put a new version out there for everybody coming up here. And then the 2 million context window, in case you want to do what 200 Cheesecake Factory menus. It's the weirdest unit of measure. But if you want to do that, you can now send all of that for some reason into Gemini 1.5 Pro. And then Gemma, these open models, these have really taken off with a lot of folks. How do you have something that you can download and use yourself? You can use these in all sorts of different ways. The Code Gemma, for people using this for app dev. Recurrent Gemma uses a different architecture than the classic transformer architecture, really interesting performance. Today we announced Poly Gemma because there's not enough gemmas. This one's great for image processing as well and image classification. So there's a whole thing, you get a Gemma, everybody gets a Gemma. Stay tuned for more there. Now this one I really love. The Hugging Face integration is pretty awesome. So if you think about this, Hugging Face is a great platform for people discovering models, consuming them. We've built some really fun integrations here that if I start in Hugging Face and see a model I like, an open model, Llama 2, Llama 3, I'm using Mistral, whatever, I can click a button that says deploy to Google Cloud or train on Google Cloud, which is great. But then also, if I'm over in Vertex itself, we actually have a button in Vertex now that says kind of deploy from Hugging Face. It goes right there, type ahead support. So it'll help you find the model and deploy it. So really nice integrations here. If you like using Hugging Face, that's where you do some model discovery and things. We're trying to make this really easy. Again, back to those early ideas, simpler things, product integrations. That's what this looks like. Now, what about those model builders? Love you people. I don't want to do this, but a lot of people love doing this stage. You want to train models, tune them yourself. That's awesome. What do we have for you here? Well, we're trying to make sure you have a full set of capabilities if you want to do this sort of work. So whether you're going to first discover and then tune and customize, update, then deploy and run it, we want to make sure you've got the right things at each stage there. And so this is new. So if you have labeled data and you want to be able to do some specific parameter tuning to get a model that's more specific to your domain, we now support this more adapter-based model for Gemini. We didn't have this before. This is new. So the ability to do tuning for your domain, again, based on sometimes not even a ton of data going into it, really, really powerful stuff. So again, this is about simplification of pretty hard tasks. I like the prompt management. In a lot of cases, prompts are getting to be as important as some of your source and your source code. So how do you think about lifecycle management for prompts? How do you define them? How do you have a version history? How do you maybe compare them? And so we've launched a really nice interface in the console if you want to kind of experiment with prompts and then go through this whole lifecycle, where maybe you start with one, you compare it against another. Oh, these results are worse. Cool, let's back up to this. I think we're all going to be doing a little more and more of this as we mess around with these AI-based systems. So you can try this out in Vertex today. It's right there. Now let's talk about agent building. This is pretty interesting stuff because maybe you're like, I just want to use finished models. I'm with you. How do I build stuff with it? How do I build interesting chatbots, interesting search engines, things like that? So Vertex AI agents, we're actually going to show you a live demo of this shortly, but this idea of being able to take existing data stores, add tools, and start to build really interactive things in honestly just a few minutes and do really, really powerful things. This is much different than writing a ton of code. This is a low-code solution, but you can do a lot, and it's really powerful stuff. A lot of this is using natural language. Again, still app lifecycle, publish, deploy, test things out. You'll see some of that interface. This is easier to use than I thought. Even I can figure it out, which was great. Another thing that's interesting, we love open frameworks. Back to those things developers need. Look, we can't just give you new things all the time and say, learn Google stuff. We want to make sure you can use the things you already love and then use them here. So if you're using LangChain to build generative AI apps, a lot of folks are right now. So what you can do with Vertex is as you can pick any open model, define your tools, and then even deploy these sort of orchestrated apps directly to a managed service with our reasoning engine. So you can use LangChain, build these apps that call this LLM, do this, deploy that to Vertex via CLIs, try to make a single integrated experience. Even if you love these open tools, awesome. We want to make it great for you. Another example, Llama Index. So if you're doing retrieval augmented generation, right, you're taking a model and you want to ground it in your own data, there's a bunch of ways to do it. This one's gotten really popular. So again, we want to support it. We don't want to make you have to learn entirely new things with us. It should be familiar. So here you can do some really great things around actually pointing to data, doing embeddings, doing transformation, referencing these applications. So if you like Llama Index, you're doing retrieval augmented generation, you can do this with Vertex. What's also great, and one of those things, look, for us to build generative AI apps, you kind of have to trust this stuff, right? Like at some point for you to get to production, you have to have some trust. And so I like these grounding solutions that say, how can I vet the answers here? And so you can ground with Google search, meaning we'll look up the results in Google and then even give you citations and references to say, yep, this is true, this is where we got this. So you have a few different choices. You can ground with us, things like Vertex AI search, here's our corpus of information, look at this, compare it to this, or do it yourself. Again, choice. I want you to have a choice on how you work with these tools. We're going to give you simple things, but if you want to roll your own and make it work that way, that's awesome too. So actually, I want to invite my friend Aja up here. We're going to do a good demo here of what it means to build an agent from scratch. Aja, make the magic happen.
So let's build an agent from scratch.
Yeah.
How long can you give me?
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay, we can do 5 minutes. So over the weekend, it was absolutely beautiful where I'm from in Seattle, and a whole bunch of people were going out, having picnics, just getting outside. And I was thinking it would be way easier to do that if you could use a conversational agent to reserve a picnic shelter at a park. So let's build that agent from scratch right here. So I have created the app already, but I haven't written any code. And to prove it, I'll show you. We got nothing. It's all the defaults right now. And so this agent, live demo. Let's try again. There it goes. So the agent we're going to build is going to have one feature. And it's just going to be, hey, I want to reserve a site at a park on a given day, and it's going to make that reservation and return a confirmation code to you. So you can see here that I haven't done anything. This is just straight defaults, no instructions, no agent. So in order to make those reservations, my agent needs to be connected to my reservation system. So let's give our agent a tool. So we're going to load our tools page up, and then we're going to create a tool. And it happens to be that I have an API for my reservations. So we're going to call this our reservations API tool. And I need to supply a description of what this tool is used for. And this description is what the LLMs use to build prompts so that the agent can use this tool successfully. So we're going to say, list the available reservation times for picnic shelters at specific parks on specific days. And then allows users to make a reservation for a shelter at a specific park, day, and time. So at this point, you might be thinking, how am I going to make a conversational agent talk to an API? And the answer is Open API schema. I actually have my API right here, standard Open API, and we're just going to copy and paste this straight in. And this just has the API for my reservations system.
And did you create that by hand?
I did not. I actually had Gemini do it. It was awesome.
It's the right way to do it.
So we're going to save that. And that's going to give our agent a tool to work from. So let's write the agent itself now. We're going to create a new agent. And let's give our agent a name. Picnic Shelter Reservations Agent. So we need to give the agent a goal so it knows what it's supposed to do. So we're going to say, help customers reserve picnic shelters at specific parks. And I found that it works better when I tell the agent to stay in its lane. So let's say, do not answer other questions or help with other tasks. So now I need to give it some instructions.
Yep.
And I just write those out the same way if I was giving you those instructions. And they give us a lovely sample, and we're going to start with that. I'm going to delete the parts in the middle, but we're going to greet users. And instead of asking how we're going to help, we're going to say, offer to help them book a picnic shelter. And then gather necessary information, like date and park name. And then we're going to use that tool we just created. Use tool, reservations API tool, to look up available times and make the reservation. And then we're going to thank the user for their business and say goodbye.
Nice.
And that's it.
You have an agent.
Agent's done. So we'll save this.
Now, what were your other tool options besides an API?
I could have done, so let me get the agent going, and I'll answer your question while we're waiting for the response. I could have done a tool based on a data store. So I could have uploaded information about my parks and created a tool that knew everything and could tell you where all the waiting pools were.
Right.
And there are other tools coming. Cool, my agent's asked how it can help me today. So I want to reserve a picnic shelter at Powell Barnett Park on, I got a friend who's got a birthday coming up. Let's reserve a picnic shelter for that. So we're going to put in our date. Oh, noes. Let's try one more time. Let's try it one more time. So I want to reserve
I'm not sure you said please.
Yeah.
It's very important. Thank you for adding that. I appreciate that. Hey, see, there you go. Be nice to the robots.
That's exactly what the problem was. So you can see it actually called our reservations API tool and got the list of times. And then I'm going to say I want that 3 p.m.
Yep.
And we'll see it's going to make the reservation via our reservations API tool and give me the reservation ID. And that's it.
That's
amazing.
Took
a little bit longer than 5 minutes because, I had to say please and I forgot the magic word.
Yeah, next time.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Aja. Great job. Huh? Great. That's right. So your big takeaway is be polite to our robot overlords, that they need that. Awesome. So that was pretty easy, right? If I'm building I mean, all of us can do that. You build a cloud function, you build a cloud run service, you build something in Firebase, call that as an endpoint, and then all of a sudden you can have some real-time interaction with your model. That's pretty awesome. So, and then you can take that result and put that on a web page. You can deploy that chatbot in different places. So really, really powerful way to build that experience. Awesome. So let's talk about app developers. What do we have for you? So if we look at what cloud offers app developers, look, bring your favorite frameworks and tools, bring your favorite JavaScript frameworks, use Spring Boot, use Go, use .NET, whatever. But we're trying to make sure you have great tools for development. Cloud Workstations gives you IDEs on demand, enterprise grade, in your VPC, very great high-performing things. This is how Google does software engineering with cloud IDEs and remote desktop. So we've made that into a service for you. At the same time, things like Apogee, things like our Cloud Code plugins that plug into your IDE, plenty of things for developers to use. And then I have to ship and run. Use things like GKE if you want the world's best Kubernetes, or Cloud Run for really a tremendous sort of just give me a container and run it service. Of course, things like Firebase are tremendous. You saw some new updates today. And then, of course, the really fun part, running software. How do I run it? And so part of this portfolio is also, hey, what's the logging story, the monitoring story? How do I maintain configurations at scale? All of this is powered, again, by great infrastructure, and bring your own tools. This is all pluggable, our CI/CD services, our runtimes, our dev tools. Use what you want to use, but we try to bring some of the best stuff we can to you. So one of those things we've added recently is something called Code Assist, Gemini Code Assist. How do we actually make application development better with AI? And so in this case, I can use things like Code Assist to generate code. I can use it to complete code, generate tests, explain my code, do transformations, which is new. So code transformation is great. I could be in my application code, pick a block, and you saw a little bit of a demo earlier today, immediately make a change in place. Maybe pick some lines of code and say, can you add some comments here? Or if it's my code, make it readable, tweak it, make improvements, transform it, right? Switch it from even languages, things like that. So I love this ability to start doing in-context transformation of code. Just helps me as a developer do different things. Now, this is exciting. We're bringing full code base awareness. This is in preview. This is how do we start to take advantage of even that Gemini 1.5 full thing? How do we able to process everything in a code repository at one time? If I'm doing a modernization from Java 8 to Java 21, if I'm modernizing from one to the other, I can't just do it class by class. I want to think about that whole code base. Or if I'm looking for security issues in a brand new code base that some dev handed me before they won the lottery and left, I want to analyze that quickly. I want to understand that whole thing. So I love this ability to use that big context window to understand the whole code base. Now, this is maybe the number one thing we're asked for with this service, which is how do we, though, make it aware of our code base, right? I'm in the enterprise, or I'm an independent contractor, whatever, and I've written a bunch of code. I want these suggestions to understand my code, my coding styles, my other classes, my projects. And so in preview now, we've got code customization. And what's really powerful here is it's not just GitHub-based. Love GitHub. But if you have GitLab, if you have Bitbucket, if you're in Europe, if you're in Asia, if you're in India, it doesn't matter. So we want to make sure that we get code customization regardless of the service, regardless of the geo. That's a bit unique in this space. But we want to make sure you have the simplest solution to do the most powerful things. I love the partner work we're doing here as well, because again, I don't want to necessarily just make sure here's Google best practices. To be sure, Gemini Code Assist is trained on 2 million pages of Google Cloud Docs, YouTube videos, blog posts, reference architectures. It is the best cloud-based assistant of any of these tools, but it shouldn't just be about us. So we've actually worked with a number of partners that are training our chat model, and they're training the code suggestion model. So if I want to be able to come in and know that HashiCorp has given me some guidance on good Terraform, hey, easy, Tiger, go back. There we go. That was me. I want to make sure I'm getting the best suggestions for that code from Sneak, all these different vendors. I love that. So we want to make sure if you're building modern software, even if it's not just with Google things, this can be the one place that you're getting all the best advice. So we're excited about this. We've got a number of people helping us train our models and our code base. But then the other thing I do want to talk about, Gemini and Firebase. This is awesome. How do I think about helping Firebase developers who are doing things like learning Firebase? How do I do this? What's the next step? What is this service? How do I use Crashlytics? Or how do I troubleshoot problems? How do I explain what I have? So what you're seeing with a lot of these services is when we add this sort of Gemini in, we're just trying to make it easier to use that service. You still need your awesome skills in coding. You still need to know how to use these services. We're just making it easier by using AI as an assistant. So love what we're doing there with Firebase. One of the other services we announced at Cloud Next, it's in private preview now, is Cloud Assist. We have Code Assist, helping developers. We have Cloud Assist. This is a service that's actually trained to help you operationalize, design, and troubleshoot your services because it knows about your account. So if I go in there and say, hey, I'm seeing this sort of database error and I'm asking for help in the chat. So yep, I see that database error, you're under-resourced right now. Or hey, this firewall rule changed and it's because Richard made a change. Like it understands what's going on, immediately pinpointing problems with you, helping you get to the right point. So AI making troubleshooting and site reliability engineering a little easier. But enough of me jabbering. I want to invite Aja back up here to kind of give us a little bit of that whirlwind tour of Gemini in. And there's a couple of things here you probably haven't seen before that are pretty awesome. So now that I've set the bar high, don't let me down.
So we're going to look real fast at the way Gemini can help you throughout the software delivery lifecycle. And the easiest way to see that is to go on a little bit of a thought experiment. Let's say that I run a style consulting service that helps clueless people like myself pick outfits to wear on special occasions like today. And what I have here is some code that we could potentially use for that service. But you've never seen this code before, and I haven't looked at it in a while, so let's have Gemini explain it to us. And while it's running, I'm just going to say that I'm running here on a cloud workstation. It's an entirely web-based development environment, one of the things we have in cloud, and it's just my IDE here, and it's already returned. And what we're doing is it's walking me through the imports, the different classes I've pulled in Python, says it's a Flask app, walks me through the routes, explains some of the functions, and then gives me a lovely summary. And that's lovely. But I forgot what this class does, like, completely. So we're going to say, tell me more about generative model. And it's going to tell me more about that particular class, which I haven't used, and it's going to tell me that it's part of Vertex AI. It's going to tell me what it's good at. It's going to give me some of the key features, give me some suggestions on usage, including a code snippet that I could potentially learn from, and link me off to resources in our documentation so I could learn more.
Nice.
So, Richard, this is where I admit that I have been a very naughty developer. I haven't written any tests.
First step is admitting it.
Yeah, I feel very bad about that. So I could write tests one by one, but let's just write tests for app.py. Let's just have Gemini do it for me. This is what Code Assist is great at, and it'll get me started.
Yeah.
So what we've got here is a bunch of tests. We've got a test on our index function. We've got a test on our valid path, of invalid path. It even does mocks, and it'll generate all these tests, and I can just copy these over into my test file and set it up, and I now have tests. So that's how you can have Gemini Code Assist help you while you're developing code. Mm-hmm. But let's say that we're doing super successful, and we want to, speed things up a little bit. So instead of uploading images one by one and analyzing them, we want to create a pipeline that does it in the background. So let's create an application integration, because that's what application integrations are good at. So what we're going to do here is, we're going to pull a prompt in. Let's think about what we want to do. So when a user uploads a file to cloud storage, use a pub sub event on the queue new fashion image and extract the file name, run the Cloud Run service fashion analysis, write the results to AlloyDB, and log the entire interaction to BigQuery.
So you're really just totally natural language. I'm trying to build a system.
Yeah, basically, this is how I would write the spec.
Yeah.
So while that's thinking, I'm just going to point out that there's a bunch of templates here to get you started. I had to think a bit about exactly what the prompt I wanted was, how the pieces fit together. But you can see that it actually not only gives me the prompt, and it explains the flow down here, but it also gives it to me visually if I think about things better that way. So we're going to call this fashion background service. And we can actually edit the prompt, but I like this, so we can create this. I typed it wrong. Fashion. And we can actually now go in, and it won't create everything for us, but it gives us the outline. And the nice thing is that once we get into the system, we can actually use Gemini to help us with some of these things. Gemini can actually help us configure these connectors as well. So it'll walk you through it step by step in logical chunks.
Very cool.
So if we get our integration running, we're going to be writing to AlloyDB. And let's go check out AlloyDB Studio. So I'm here in AlloyDB Studio. I've got my database set up. And while I know SQL, it's been a while. So let's do a query in natural language and see how Gemini can help us here. How many of the results in fashion analysis contain the word fancy? So simple query, but still. And I'm going to review the code because every piece of code needs a code review. So this looks good to me. So I'm going to insert it, and we can run it. And we can see that 2 of the results in our fashion analysis table contain the word fancy. Simple, natural language to SQL, and this feature is also available in BigQuery. We showed it in AlloyDB today. So let's assume we've been wildly successful. Millions of people worldwide have downloaded my fashion app. And as we all know, sometimes stuff goes wrong in production. So here we are in Crashlytics. And I'm going to look at one of these errors. And it actually analyzed it for me. So here's a bunch of insights that it gave me, walking me through this application not responding error, including here's the stack trace, here's the possible causes, including long-running operations, infinite loops, deadlocks. Gives me some troubleshooting advice, including using profiling tools like Android Studio's Profiler, and then helps me get tips on resolving the issue as well. And this will work on application not responding errors of all types. It also works on crashes that show up in Crashlytics. And so this is a great feature to help dig into those production issues that you just can't repo on your own machine, because you get a little more guidance and it helps you dig into stuff, especially where you don't know the libraries very well. So that was your soup to nuts,
Amazing.
Code to production, a tour of all the ways that Gemini can help you.
There we go, Aja. There we go. Yeah, I love that. I mean, what she was even showing you with Code Assist, this wasn't some weird, fancy, different IDE. This was VS Code. Or use your JetBrains IDEs. Use whatever. Use it in IDX. Like, use it in whatever tool you want. But you can use whatever is familiar for you here, which is really powerful. Love the app integration stuff. Just lots of ways. We didn't even have time to show you. This is an Apogee. This is in a bunch of different places where we've just tried to add AI assistance to the dev experience. So yeah, sure, look, we think AI-assisted development is the future of software engineering, but this doesn't replace the need for you to be great software engineers. This just gives you an extra step to be even better, but your skills are more important than ever. You need to train more, understand the language more, understand syntax more, but we get to get rid of some of the toil with this. All right, what's new for data, folks? What's up here? We do a lot of data things. If you look at our portfolio, we've invested a ton here in just world-class databases, still tremendous analytics with BigQuery. Vertex AI, as you hear, is our full ML Ops AI platform here as well, and then great insights with Looker. All of this sitting on an amazing foundation of technology and infrastructure. Even simple things like our powerful network make such a big difference in things like BigQuery, how we can move data so quickly, simply because we have such a powerful network and storage. So all of this builds on each other, but this is a huge part of why people choose Google Cloud. And so one thing we've done is made sure that pretty much every database we have is now a vector database. So if you're working with these retrieval augmented generation scenarios, you're chunking up data, sticking that in a vector database, and then searching for those things in your retrieval augmented generation apps. So can we meet you wherever you are, whatever database you want to use? So memory store, things like Redis, amazing. Treat that as your vector store. You want to do that with Cloud SQL or AlloyDB, MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, things like that. You want to do this with Spanner or Bigtable, even Firestore? Live your life. Whatever you want to do, it's amazing. We'll make them all vector databases for you. So all of these have been enabled, helping you to do things like vector search. Pretty exciting stuff if you're building these modern apps. We've also done a few things, again, going back to what you want, hopefully as a developer, we've also added some innovations that are unique to Google Cloud. So if you're doing these sort of vector searches, you're searching for things like nearest neighbor, you're finding things that are related. And PG Vector is a great plugin for Postgres that folks use to do vector stuff with Postgres. It's amazing. It has a built-in search algorithm that's awesome. But we've also, Google's pretty good at search, so we've also added an additional algorithm that you can use with PG Vector that does about 4x the query performance You build indexes about 8 times faster. So this new index is in preview. And if you're using AlloyDB, you can have just absolutely the most high-performing vector database that you can imagine. We also love, you saw an example that Aja showed you with things like Gemini and databases where you could do natural language things. But we also support natural language in AlloyDB now, even in your code. Instead of writing a SQL statement, you could actually be writing a natural language message that says, hey, get this data from here and only filter by this. That's in your code base. And then that's getting translated to the appropriate SQL query on the fly when it's calling the database. So amazingly powerful stuff here if you want to interact with your database in this sort of natural language way. And then we mentioned this a little bit. Gemini and databases is pretty cool here. So it's two parts. Part of this is if I'm an app developer and I want help generating queries, maybe you love writing SQL statements. That's amazing. That's good for you. I don't like it personally. So I love if I can get some help doing complex joins, figuring out all these things. And so you get help with that. But you also get help explaining queries. Somebody hands you that 4,000-line stored procedure and you just are very upset with yourself. Get an explanation in that directly from these tools. But it's also an operational piece. So you're going to see this where it's going to help you tune the database, update the database, make changes to it. AI is helping you not just build things, but run things. So both of those are really important, making that available in Gemini databases. I also love the Bigtable Data Boost. We recently added something similar to Spanner as well. The idea is, can you actually have your kind of transactional database not get impacted when you start doing analytic queries against it, right? Traditionally, what would you do? You would actually create a separate database for analytical queries or ETL because you don't want to bog down your main database with those analytic queries. But what Data Boost does is it actually provisions and carves things up separately so that it has zero impact on your regular transactional workloads, even if you're doing intensive analytic or operational tasks, which is awesome. So these things are like checkbox features. Just turn this on, and all of a sudden you get this capability to do operational and transactional things at the same time. And so you might want to take advantage of this. Again, instead of just simplifying your architecture. A lot of the goal for cloud nowadays should not be to make things more complicated. It should be making things dramatically simpler. To me, this is something that eliminates things from your architecture. You don't need so much stuff. You just check a box. And now I don't have to have data clones for analytics. I can just do it all in the same database, which is really great. BigQuery itself is becoming an absolute central hub for most things here in Google Cloud. You're able to do analytics. You're accessing different data sources. BigQuery can actually reach into data sources in Amazon and Azure. You can do cross-cloud joins. You can do different data formats. Amazing stuff that you could do now in BigQuery, and you're seeing us centralize this more and more. Do Python, do notebooks, do all of these things all directly within BigQuery. Some of the new things around that is if you actually want to do tuning and grounding of LLMs within BigQuery. So maybe I'm really used to that experience, and because it's all right next to my data, I can import models, take advantage of them, do that tuning and grounding without ever leaving BigQuery. So really powerful for folks who, again, don't want to have to context switch between every different service. And then we've also added Gemini in BigQuery. So in this case, again, if you have a really complex, gnarly query and you want to get an explanation for it, we'll give it to you right in the spot. You want us to help write it for you? This is a great one to test out. If you know BigQuery has those free data sets that you can mess around with, you can do it, not now because we're having fun, but after this, you can go in there and say something like, hey, I want to pull up all the release notes from the last 2 months, order them by product, and reference the data set. It'll give you the valid query, and you just run it. It's amazing. So really cool way to just explore data, even if you don't understand all the nuances of a query. Also, if you haven't seen it, the BigQuery data canvas. Again, this is how does it make it easier to explore data? And so this actually uses natural language to help you explore, chart, analyze information kind of live to mess around with your data sets in BigQuery. They're trying to provide you more surfaces that don't force you to have to jump all over the place or figure out different things. I really like this as a way to start exploring your data sets. And then Gemini and Looker as well, making it straightforward for you doing BI and building dashboards within your favorite BI tool. All right, the last one I want to mention, and we'll have a little time for Q&A, is productivity. Look, Workspace is a huge platform for all of us to use. I spend almost my entire day in Meet. Don't be jealous. It's a glamorous lifestyle. But for some of you who don't have to do that, you're also using a lot of these other tools as well, which is great, or you're using the APIs to build things. Some of these human-in-the-loop services that we have, that make it possible to bake in some of these services into your own application. So Workspace is used by billions of users every week and every month, which is powerful. But we've done 3 cool things for you to be aware of, kind of API-wise. You have the smart chips, which lets you bring that third-party content into Workspace. That's really, really powerful. Add-ons, go ahead and augment some of that Workspace information with some of your apps. And love that you can bake in chat apps thanks to the Meet API. You can bake that into your application as well and keep people where they are. So we're trying to make it easier and easier for people who like using Workspace, want to use those APIs, bake in this powerful, familiar service into their own applications. And then things like conversational agents, even what Aja showed you with the agent builder, uses Dialogflow underneath the covers. You having more capability to bake this into your applications, bake this into chat, and build, again, some of these agent-based interfaces for Workspace, just trying to give you more and more APIs to give you the power you need. And as mentioned, a number of other great API improvements. We keep investing a ton here. New REST APIs for chat and Meet give you access to things like notifications, new messages. That Events API lets you create meetings, change meetings, update them, configure them. You can imagine a lot of cool applications you can build with that. So look, all of these things, it's a whirlwind of things. There will be a quiz after. We'll see how you do. But there's a lot of stuff here. But the point is, all of it is around, can we simplify how you can build amazing software and make it less toil and easier to run it? I mean, that's the point here, is are we giving you the best tools for your best things, plugging into the most open tools possible, and giving you hopefully a fun community where you can get help from each other, not just the AI assistant. With that, I will thank you for listening to this today.